corruption in the country, Uganda, how do Ugandans, first of all, fight corruption? Then, how does the diaspora help in fighting corruption in Uganda? There is a disease that ezze nnyo mu ggwanga lyaffe ng'ekwatagana ku buli bw'enguzi, era tulabye abantu bangi nnyo ab'ebitiibwa, and I think they are losing it out. Yes, they are losing it out. Simanyi lwaki, naye nga they are losing it out. So, ng'abavubuka, we have decided to, oh, okay. You've added on another account. Okay, no problem. Anywhere. Ng'abavubuka tusalawo nnyo okulaba nga twenyigira mu nsonga eno ey'okubeera nga tulwanyisa obuli bw'enguzi. So, my brother, before I go any further, please buuza kubawuliriza n'abatulaba ku TikTok, tulabe nga tugenda mu maaso n'omulamwa gwaffe olunaku olwaleero.
Good evening, viewers. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here on Observe Radio Station. And my name is Vyargava Ronald Napoleon, spokesperson, National Unity Platform, or our chapter, Canada. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm glad that we are here for a very important topic, which is fighting corruption in Uganda. Because you and I both know, listeners and everyone around all over the world, the diaspora, people back home, that it's actually a very, very big disease. It's a virus that is spreading, that has spread, and that has eaten up all the roots of our generations and eras. But yeah, once again, it's a pleasure to be here. And I bring you greetings from the chairperson, who is right now, I'm sure, listening, Mr. Chobe, and he's glad to be part and part of the show in the background. We also have people in the Ottawa diaspora who are listening, and people all over. I have a lot of friends who are notified to be present, because I believe the struggle does not belong to one person or two, but everyone wherever they are. Good evening.
Okay. It's Mr. Napoleon Byarugaba, the spokesperson of the Ottawa NUP chapter. And the main issue here is it's got to be drilled on corruption. Mr. Napoleon, we've seen very many politicians, over the decade, before even Bobby Wine came up, even before NUP was born, we have had very many political parties like DP, UPC, and other parties in the opposition. And it has been a talk of town. They have to come up and talk about Mr. Museveni is doing this. Mr. Museveni does this. Mr. Museveni does this, but they don't walk, they talk. What's different that the National Unity Platform has put up, and that is making sure that, even the junta is scared? So what has the National Unity Platform done basically in Uganda? I don't want to say in the diaspora, because we shall reach there. What has the National Unity Platform done to make sure that corruption is rooted out in Uganda and the Ugandan politics at large?
First of all, let me congratulate our president, Mr. President, that is Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, aka Bobby Wine, because he's a vital, or the pivot point of this fight. Corruption, if we are going to define corruption, it's the dishonesty or criminal offense undertaken by a person or an organization which is orchestrated within to acquire illicit benefits for their own personal use or for abuse of power. So corruption is very wide. So what is Mr. Kyagulanyi doing differently? First and foremost, we should first understand that over 75% of the Ugandan economy, Ugandan people, live below the poverty line. Key. Over 75% of Ugandans live below the poverty line. Now that first tells you the problem we have at hand. Secondly, 64% of the youth are unemployed. It should come into play that we should understand that the general population of Uganda, the biggest population, the bigger percentage is the youth. So what does Mr. Kyagulanyi represent? He represents the youth. So what is Mr. Kyagulanyi going to do differently? Key factor is he is also a youth. If we look back at his background, we all know that he was a ghetto kid at one time. So he was able to experience the different levels of impunity and the different levels of corruption, embezzlement. He was on the ground. He experienced his pain as a musician, evolved from just being a musician to becoming a political fighter, a fighter for democracy, a fighter for people's rights. So in Buganda, I would say, yanyigirizibwa mutoke nagamba kanveyo, let me get out of this shell of being a musician and try to fight out for the greater good of people. So what is he going to do differently? One, he represents the greater aspect of the percentage of the majority of Ugandans, which are the youth. Where we have already mentioned that 75% of Ugandans live beyond the poverty line. So key one is he represents the youth. The number two is he has been at the lowest level of life. He grew up in a ghetto. We have people who continuously, like the present regime, will mention to you, in regards to Alwana.
We came
So,
twaliwo bannange mutuleke.
So the mentality is they have not evolved from twakwe mundu nechigwa katereze gwanga twakwe mundu nechigwa. So right now our prospects are we should benefit from the fight we did what we had, and that doesn't have an end because year after year we can see, if I can read for you the reports that are right before me from different organizations, you will be thrilled, like we are in agony, we are in pain. So the two major factors is one, we have said, he represents the youth where the majority of Ugandans belong. And number two, he has been there. He has felt it. He has felt the pinch and pain and evolved to where he is through the struggle of seeing the demise of the country's economy. Those are the two key aspects I would give us.
Okay. Mr. Napoleon, let's talk about what Mr. Museveni calls imperialism. How true is Bobi Wine funded by the Western culture to try drag Uganda back to the fights and wars? Is it even really true?
When Museveni was coming into power, just a brief background, a prelogue, did he use his own energies as a person to take over the state? Because if you remember so well the history of him coming from Tanzania to overthrowing the government that was then on, I think, Idi Amin regime, do we have an instance where he was not helped by outsiders?
No. By the way,
no.
Point of information, his son and wife were in Sweden.
Oh, they were. I heard about it, but I didn't get the details of what they had gone to do.
They had gone to, I think, studying, and I think the wife was in Kenya, then went to Sweden as the man was fighting in the bush.
Thank you very much. Now, this history, what does it show you? That for a person to gradually fall into the process of becoming a true leader for a particular nation, we have to copy. We are, first of all, right now considered a third world country. How do we improve the basics of who we are? Without. I had people complaining that our president is always traveling out. If you have been to Ottawa, you've been to Toronto, you've been Australia, Germany, and France, and a lot of countries around us, when you move and see the progress, the development in these countries, it triggers your patriotic mother heart to see such kind of changes happening back home. If we are, there's a Runyankolo and Uganda proverb which says, "Akana katatambra katenda nyina," Runyankolo akana katatambra nkasima nyina. So when you don't go out and see these things, how do you expect to bring changes back home without knowing what's happening beyond the borders of your own home? So if you say, is he being funded in one way or another? I believe, yes, there will be some funding that is coming, which of course should help in the changes, in the struggle. But if I say totally there is no funding that comes through, then I would be also a hypocrite. So we all know whichever regime is on, even BSJ, who was there before Bobi Wine, or our president, Mr. Chagulani, also had funding. He was funded by people from outside. We have the news, we have the information that he was, the reports that he was given funding, not to remove the current dictator, as people would say, but to build, to build a foundation of which we shall start the fight, because the fight needs funding. It needs, the struggle needs funding. Democracy needs funding. If you're going to train and teach people, you need, there's a school, we have a school, a NUP school in Uganda that is training leaders. What is one of our greatest weaknesses right now? I listened to a political leader on TV recently who said, the current parliament is full of people who are not supposed to be in those positions. Which means for you to become an MP right now in Uganda, you don't need to have the qualifications. You need to buy your way in. That's how bad it is right now. That you're not elected because you have the intellectual capacity to lead us and guide us and to show us that in parliament you can choose the correct laws, but governing. But actually, it's a matter of being able to find your way through to become a parliament, a member of parliament. And what does that mean? It means that the road has gone from the leadership, from the hierarchy up to the lowest sector, the bottom, which I'll also talk about later on.
Okay,
So yes,
Mr. Napoleon, let's talk about the actual government, the Museveni government.
yes, please.
He's usually seen in public saying, "I'm going to crush these pigs. I'm going to crush this one. I'll get you. I'll get you. I've seen you. I know you people." How comes that he's lacking the political will to really crush corruption and fighting injustices plus other human violations as usually Bobby Wine and NUP portray them?
One of the greatest factors that have caused the loophole to Mr. Museveni and his regime is the fact that he has grown greed for power, which has made him illusional to the current matters that affect the Wananchi on the ground. So he's oblivious of what is happening on the ground, even when somehow he can see things trending that people are in a dire state. When Museveni came to power in the 80s, he came with a group of people. That group of people has stood by him. They helped him to gain power, and they have grown and evolved with him. Now, the levels of impunity, okay? I'm not going to talk about tribalism right now, but the levels of impunity have grown to the extent that some of these people are untouchable. And these people have families and friends. When I mentioned over 75% of the people are unemployed, the 25% we're talking about circle around the people around him. They call themselves Nkatere Mbundu, meaning we went to the bush and fought our way in. Those people and their circles, they cannot be touched by anyone. And because of that, even Museveni himself, they're a threat to him, just like he's a threat to them. Because they are untouchable, they run most areas, they operate most sectors within the country that are financially strong, where they uproot and the greed comes from. And because of this, you don't expect them to relinquish power because they're still gaining from what they have fought for, apparently, and they take this as a gift year after year, election period after election period, and this is never going to go away because they cannot do anything to them, and he cannot do anything. What will Bob Wine do differently? He is not attached to any of these generals or all these big men or all these people in these sectors because he's coming as a youth who has gone through the procedures, who has gone through the pain-scissoring moments of seeing what our country has come from. So the reason why we have that bit of impunity with the current government is because they fought their way in, and for them, they own the country. They believe, I'm sorry to say they don't own the country, they believe they own the country. So in their thinking, in their kind of what is called, in their mental incapacitation, they believe that the country belongs to them. They own a lot of land. They own the biggest organizations. They own everything. And because of this, even when you see something, a structure somewhere, and you see a label there, behind the label, there's actually a person who actually owns that property and who is within the system. And because the system is that rotten, you don't expect anyone, because the more you have, the more you're willing to die for. That's why when people say we are going to riot, then the state brings in machinery to fight you because they are protecting what belongs to them. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They will fight where to the nail. So they won't even let you get to where Ruto's people got. They won't, because for them they have a lot to protect. And they have invested in creating structures to fight anything, I believe, anything and anyone that comes closer to taking their power away from them.
Okay. To you, it looks like the government has failed. To you, you mean there is no redemption from the Museveni government to really fight corruption?
I believe the government has failed. Totally, they cannot fight corruption. Because, let me give you, you see, I was discussing with someone about our LC1 chairman in my village back home in Uganda, and I found that he had been the chairman LC1. The one before him was chairman LC1 for 20 years, and the one who is there has already spent there over 10 years. They're all NRM. Now, if you look at all the chairmen LC1, they have been in power for over 10, 15, 20 years. Mostly they're NRM. Now, if you go to councillors, you'll find the same problem. Now we are going up. You go to the members of parliament, you rarely find someone who comes for one term. It is rare. In most cases, they'll run 10, 15, 20 years, 5, 8. They are like their elder, Museveni, who has been there now close to
40?
30 years, and 40 years, sorry, and he's still running. And he's still running. You know what I'm saying? So when you have a system whereby the head has been there so long and supported certain evil modules that have grown within the system, there is no way you can uproot the system because the system is written from below. You go down to the local council levels, it's the same. Go to the councils, it's the same. Go to the members of parliament, it's the same. And then go up, it is worse. Now, when you have a system that is immorally structured like that, if you remove certain things, if you cut certain things off, they grow back because they're supported both by the head and the root. So the stem has no run of show. That's why the parliament we have, as listen, some MPs saying that they have no say in parliament. So totally, you cannot say that there's a way out for redemption for them. There is no redemption. Totally, it's unacceptable. Because, sorry, can you hear me? Okay, I'm losing you now. Sorry, I cannot hear you. I can see you. Okay, now you're coming back, yes?
Yeah. To whoever is listening to us, you on www.xavierradio.ug, we are located in Ontario and we are based in Canada. I'm having my brother Napoleon from NUP. He's a spokesperson of the National Unity Platform, Ottawa chapter. We are talking about fighting corruption in Uganda. And for the past, I don't know, 1 to 2 months, we've seen very many riots in Uganda. People on social media, people talked about it. High taxes, the business community. How comes that the fight about corruption hasn't gained much attraction with the Ugandan masses? Because according to Mr. Museveni, what he says, you guys, you're killing the wealth creators, and the people haven't joined maybe the NUP and other people fighting for to end corruption in the country.
Come again?
Yes, I was saying, how comes that the Ugandan residents community hasn't joined the fight the fight in corruption?
The Ugandan community is fully backing up the fight for corruption, but you see, they're facing challenges also. You think the people in the diaspora are fighting so hard? It's because they are where they are. We all know back in Uganda, if you stand up against the regime, you've heard of the drones securing people and kidnapping them, and then people are not found. You've had this boy who was on the street recently, Sammy. He was given 15 years. He was taken to court without prior notice of his lawyers that he's going to be paraded before the courts of law, and then he was given 15 years. You've heard of people being kidnapped and then they never appear. You've heard of people's businesses being attacked. You're there and all of a sudden they impose taxes on your business. You've heard of people's families also being attacked in order to force you, to coerce you into becoming a partaker of their shares. So if you don't become part of their coalition, they always find a way to bend your knees. Because of this kind of of persecution, there's a reason as to why people in the diaspora are more active, because people in the diaspora feel they are somehow untouchable because they are away from home. But those who are home, they are fighting. You can see there are people coming up once in a while going on TikTok and saying things, not because they are fine, it's because they have shed pain and blood and decide to bring it out in that kind of form. So you cannot say that people back home are doing well. You've seen the traders. Right now they're preparing another demonstration. You know the traders, what they went through. The Ifri stack.
Okay.
Poverty line, but
Okay. It looks like you have a problem with your internet. Okay, you're back again. Let's go. We go.
so I was saying,
Yeah.
you can't say people are not fighting. They are actually fighting. That is why we have a situation with people coming out. We have the traders, we have the youth. Then you should understand that Uganda loses around 9.4 trillion per year. 9.4 trillion per year because of bribery and maladministration. That is mismanagement of funds, procurement, tax evasion, theft of drugs, amongst others. 9.4 trillion is not little money. It can do a lot of money. That's just according to the Inspectorate of Government. We're not looking at the other organizations that made their audit. Now, what are the sectors that we look at that are most corrupt? Because you say the people of Uganda are not coming out to fight. They are coming out to fight. But the government is corrupt. We all know the government is corrupt. The judiciary is corrupt. The police is corrupt. And the people have also been corrupted. So, if you are held for rioting against corruption and you're taken by the police, what does the police first do? They deny you bail and they hold on to you. Yet, it is your mandate to get bail and be released so that you keep reporting back to the police, right?
Yeah, true.
Eventually, the police is corrupt because they receive a phone call saying you cannot be released. You are taken before court. When you reach court, that's where you're supposed to again to ask for. In police, you're supposed to ask for bond, but in court, you're supposed to ask for bail. But when you reach court, and then you decide to bring in people who are going to help you so that you're released, then it becomes another problem. How you are paraded in the night or early morning without the notification of your people, and you are swept away into Luzira or any other places for years. You keep in detention for year after year, year after year. Now, if you have a corrupt government, a corrupt judiciary, and a corrupt police, then the whole entire system is dead. That's why I told you earlier that there's no redemption in the current government, because if all the sectors are corrupt, who is going to redeem the other?
Okay. Napoleon, let's talk about what the opposition has done in the diaspora to fight the cancer corruption. And really, is your work, all efforts, having an impact on the fight on corruption?
I believe we are doing a very good job. Ottawa had this year, Ottawa had the demonstration, Montreal had a demonstration, Toronto had a big demonstration, Edmonton had one recently also. And if you are very keen on watching the news, you realize that after governments of the US, because when we demonstrate, we take letters to to the Human Rights Commissions and also to the Senates, asking for them to intervene. And if you have been keen on the news, you realize that within this year, there are certain people who have been sanctioned without people from Uganda speaking. We're talking about people in the US also demonstrating and other people within the diaspora. So if you say how good, yeah, we're doing a pretty good job. It's not all round enough, but if all sectors play their role, people back home, people in the diaspora, leaders, then yes, the impact is there. Because the more the pressure, then eventually, if you've seen governments capsize, it's because the pressure has come from the people. Eventually, the people, if they keep pushing and pushing, then such governments will capsize. So our revolt has been truthfully to the bone, and I can believe and tell you openly that yes, there is progress. We have seen some members who have been sanctioned from traveling. We have seen some members' assets also being frozen in regards to our demonstrations and our riots, saying that these people own properties and stuff, and that this is good news. It means that as the pressure continues to grow, the foundation will not hold eventually, it will topple.
Okay, thank you so much. Before I ask you another question, there are very many people that are listening to me right now, and they've sent their shoutouts. That's they told me they're on. Selector Devi, Selector Devi.
Yes, please.
Yes, he's on and he's listening in right now. And he has sent me a message. One Achilo Chivumbi has been abducted by the military people in UPDF uniform, private car, NOAA UAP 164P, near his area of stay in Nansana. So that is sad from the NUP right now. What is happening? Achiel Chivumbi, I think he's a bodyguard to Bobby Wine. He has been arrested or abducted by the military, as Selector Devi is saying.
Mhm.
Yeah, so Liz Butterfly, thank you from Austria. She's listening in right now. Masasi is listening in from Uganda. Mr. Alexander Luima is listening in from here, Canada. Alexander Nkugwa of the African descent is also listening in right now. So please, guys, you can send out, you can WhatsApp me your messages so that I can ask Mr. Napoleon here. Mr. Napoleon, there's
Yes, please.
increase of abduction. Right now, you've heard from Selected V, one of the noob, I don't know, he works, he's next to Bobby Wine. He has said Akilo Chivumbi has been abducted. There are very many abductions and suppress of free of speech. Do you think the struggle can still go on as very many people are being abducted or maybe even killed?
Thank you very much. It's very absurd. It's such an absurd time to find that Akilo Chibumbi has been abducted. Thank you very much, Director Devi. We need this information to come through to the diaspora. So that when we are marching, we march with placards written on these people's names, but also with pictures of them, so that we parade them out there and demand for our people's release or to know their whereabouts. Um, if you now realize that a lot of people are being abducted, what does that show you? It shows that the pressure is mounting. These abductions have risen in number more than they have been before. Notice that, right? And right now, we're not in the election period. They're happening randomly. What does that show you? It means that the pressure is mounting on the dictatorial regime, and they are quaking, they're panicking. And when someone panics, they make a mistake. And when they make a mistake, what happens? It causes their downfall. This has been.
Napoleon, Mr. Napoleon, allow me to give you more information. I think from Selected Devi, so that you can add it into your discussion.
I'm writing down. Cool. Go ahead.
Yes, Selected Devi has told me the regime wants Eddie Mutwe, Tower. These are all security. I don't know how to call them, but they work as security guards of Bobby Wine. Mr. Museveni wants Eddie Mutwe, Tower, Gaddafi, and Akiro has been abducted. So everyone is scared. Who will be left to fight the regime, if really any is left?
Let it be noted, the greatest eras of changes have not come through softness. They have not come easy. There's a musician who sang a song, Easy Come, Easy Go. You don't get the good things in life by sitting down and falling back and waiting for the good things to happen. You toil and hustle for them. I know I wouldn't want to use the word like the word collateral damage because it sounds very evil and wicked, but we all know that even the current regime, for it to get into power, they shed blood to get there. Now, I understand our brothers who are being under pressure. We are working on some things that I don't want to bring out right now before, but we are working on certain ways on how we can support them back home in order to make sure that we can improve the struggle, because a struggle that is not supported, like we mentioned earlier, is not worth struggling for. And I was looking at the clips and the videos in detail of the people who were abducted in the recent riots, especially the ladies. They were manhandled and bundled and thrown on two trucks. And then when they got into court where they need a follow-up system whereby we need to find out what happens to them so that we can help them ease them they're coming out. Because when they struggle and then they're abandoned and put inside prison, then it means that the struggle is being weakened. The government does not have prisons that can engulf every Ugandan. They cannot, right?
Yes.
If you saw what happened in Kenya, if you saw the numbers that were on the street, if the government had decided to riot or to fight back, would they have encountered all those people and jailed them?
No.
They would not. And that's what happens to a panicking regime. With a panicking regime like this one, people are getting tired. Traders are making no profits.
Businesses are
Traders
down.
are not. Businesses are running down. I have a couple of people are speaking to earlier in the day and they have closed because they can't even pay the taxes. The taxes are very high. URA is not helping. Someone told me recently that they went through the airport with a phone, and because it was in this box, they had bought a phone for a relative, and then they impounded the phone saying that you have to pay for it, taxes for it. When you imported a car from outside and bring it into the country, the amount of money you pay for the taxes is more than the car you have bought outside. Do you know that?
Yeah, I know.
You buy a car for 50 million Uganda shillings from maybe Canada or anywhere, but you import it and then the taxes you pay at the border, you pay 70 million. So you're paying 120 million for a car. That's why people resort to buying vehicles back within the country and they can't bring in better things. With the system like this, with the people being squeezed, their toil being squeezed, the richer become richer and the poorer continue to falter and struggle. The system breaks. It causes the people to find a way to merge to make sure they can get freedom. Now, no matter how impunious you are, how much impunity you breed amongst your people, the number is less. Sooner or later, you've seen where the police sleep, where the army sleeps. You've seen how they are paid. Their superiors get more, and for them, they're given cheap tokens of appreciation. Eventually, when the system cracks, even them who are holding the guns, they will turn.
Mm.
So if you say you're a president and you're not fighting corruption, I mean, I was, if you're overwhelmed by the pressure from the people fighting for corruption, fighting against corruption, stand out and pick out these people and remove them from the places of play. I have a few things I was thinking about here that they can look at us as NUP are going to impose to make sure we fight for corruption. We fight corruption because corruption is a disease, it's a virus. It has ended up the whole system in every sector. We have all forms of corruption in the country.
Mr.
So,
Let me read this message. Mr. Alexander Luyima Nkugwa, I think, who is a NUP diehard, says, have our NUP lawyers lost hope? Because it's evident that the pressure has reduced on the government. Security details and handlers. I don't know how does it. I don't. Okay, I think you need to reply the first one. Have our NUP lawyers lost hope? Because it's evident that the pressure has reduced on the government. So how true is that?
I don't think they have lost hope. However, we are evolving. And how are we evolving? You also know the human rights body, international human rights body in Uganda was expelled.
Yeah.
You know that, right?
Yes.
They were expelled from Uganda and sent out.
Mm.
Now, in a country that has a Uganda human rights body ruled with people who are chosen from within, the levels of seriousness within the judiciary, the courts of law, are very poor. That's why when you mentioned earlier, asking the diaspora, what are we doing? We're imposing pressure so that foreign aid, help, and also sanctions can be put on these people so that we find a way of bringing back democracy in our country. So have they lost hope? They have not lost hope. But we have evolved and started to change strategy. There's a saying which says, if you send out, if you send out the human rights body, the international human rights body, how can I go and report a case in the court that was chosen? The people who are running that court were chosen by the people in power. Literally, you're almost doing nothing. So they have not given up hope. But let's say that we are elevating and we are evolving. As we evolve, you change strategies. And as we change strategies, because one of the reasons why the president has been in power for a long time is because for him, is a guerrilla regime. He tells you his methods are from the bush. But you need to evolve as you adapt because we have AI, we have intelligence, we have internet, which is something that is being fought. Because if you look at VPN back home and everything, you notice that they fight the only mode of way that we can, one of the greatest tools we can use. And before I go ahead, let me first thank you very much for this radio show, because one of the key aspects that we can use to fight the regime is media, journalism. And journalism back home is being cracked down seriously. But now I have a number of people who have been waiting for this talk show because now they can open up and view their opinions openly and freely. And because we can bring this, now you brought the information from Selector Devi. A lot of information is going to come through to you, and you're going to forward it because we have a committee that sits down. We have numerous committees that sit down, and then first we verify the information because lately there's a lot of false information running around. So we verify the information, and when we find it is true, we act accordingly. So when you come up and bring up these methods of how we can bring our country to check, we can bring the regime to check, not bring the regime to check, because I will list for you how we are going to fight corruption, and then I'll give you the final detail. When that moment comes, you let me come through, because you need to understand how to fight corruption. It's not going to be just simply a battle of speech, a battle of exchanging opinions and ideas, because this has been going on for a very long time and has not been effective. So, sir, I would not say that people have given up hope. No, they have evolved and they have changed the ways of how they're fighting.
Okay, Mr. Napoleon, do you how long is this going to drag on? The fight for a new Uganda, the fight to end corruption, the fight, one a NUP security person has been abducted. Gaddafi, they want to, according to Selector Devi, they want him. Selector Devi, they want him, and other people. How long is this going to drag on? Do we have even light at the end of the tunnel? Because the way we see Mr. Museveni, he's the president. He wants a new term, the next election cycle. Then the other thing is, he has strategized his son into the army, and other people around him. Do you think there is any possible way of winning any election, having the will of people, maybe drag out Mr. Museveni, having the army to fight for the people? How long is this really going to drag on, my brother?
I'm going to ask you a simple question. How long was Mandela in prison?
Oh my God. I remember.
So all the greatest things in life. He was in prison in 1962. Okay, he served 27 years. It took 27 years for Mandela to come through, and eventually relieve the people of South Africa. Let it be noted, I am a Bible scholar, and at the same time, I am a very good Christian. The Bible says, God says, one day can be 1,000 years, and 1,000 years can be one day. When you have hope and faith for what you fight for, when you strategically know what you want, and you have the passion to fight for the will you desire, you have the patriotism to fight for a country. I hear the word patriotism mentioned by people, but people don't understand what patriotism is. Patriotism is the desire to be in the diaspora and feel for your home kindred that you left back, our kinsmen back home, our parents, our children, our wives, our relatives, our fathers, our grandparents, our children, our friends. And if you see the pain they go through, and you're in the diaspora saying, Natuka, or wherever I am in Austria, things are good, then you have a problem, because it means you don't know where the roots are. There's an African proverb which says, a village without a tradition is like a tree without roots. If you don't hold to know where you come from, then you are useless or you are hopeless. So if you can be wherever you are, and not commend the fight to bring change back home. After seeing what happens day in, day out, after watching the news on a daily, 90% of the problems we have in our country are caused by corruption. 90% of the problems. What are the problems? Poor infrastructure, bad health sector, drugs being stolen, most services don't reach the normal man, the common man, that the services don't come to them. The health workers are not motivated. Even if you go to a hospital and you find doctors, they're not motivated. You will hear that people are giving birth and then they die because the doctors were not there, or even if they were there, they didn't care because they're being paid poorly. Every sector is doing bad. But why are they doing bad? The poverty down there. Do you know how many kadamas we send out of Uganda on a daily? Do you know how many youth are no longer in Uganda? Have you seen how many youth are in South America, Canada, America, Germany, Dubai, Bahrain, UAE, Qatar? Uganda has, if you look at the airport and you look at the visual cameras and the footage of people running out of the country, you can think that they are going for greater pastures. But in all reality, are they greater pastures? Is everyone in the diaspora doing well? No. When a person leaves their home and goes out there, it is pain, it is sorrow. When a person, you see a person's child at 19, 20 getting on a plane, going to work in Dubai, if you know the stories that are happening behind the scenes in those homes, how they're being ill-treated, but just because you want to be anywhere earning anything. And actually, the companies that take them out belong to those particular people who drain and squeeze the little money they make out there. Then you'll truly understand the pain and sorrow Mother Uganda is going through.
Mr. Napoleon, let me drill on one Alexander Luima's comment. He said, how best can we increase the pressure on the corrupt government from the diaspora? I think we talked about this, but you said you have ways. You think the government can hear the pressure because you've gone to embassies, you've called for sanctions, you've done marches, you've done quite a lot of things that can put pressure on the international stage, plus even Uganda. But how best can we increase the pressure of fighting for a free Uganda, a free corrupt Uganda, and having other services that can really work in our country?
I have a whole booklet on how to improve corruption back home.
Well,
however,
okay.
However, the point is not the booklet I hold before me that I'm holding right now. The point is key factor one, change of leadership. Because if I say appointing focal people with moral integrity, how can you appoint people with moral integrity and yet you don't have the powers to do so? It goes back to leadership. Accountability. How can you make people accountable for resources and funds and yet you don't have the position to apprehend them and bring them for prosecution? It goes back to leadership. How can you, create systems that alert or detect corruption when you're actually not the one leading? Because when you're leading, you can detect where the leadership is, and not only detect it, but you can follow up and prosecute these people. You can arrest them. You don't have the moral authority here in the diaspora to arrest them. Leadership. Audit and investigating. We are supposed to audit every Ugandan and investigate them. Now, we can audit and investigate from where we are. That's why we bring out information of funds being what? Mismanaged. But what can we do after auditing and investigating? Leadership. Alert security organizations like ISO, SOCMI, Police Coma, and many others. If you make a claim and you alert the police and all these organizations, but also they are the ones eating, or also they are corrupt, what are you doing? Leadership.
Bad leadership.
Educating on corruption to the masses. Press be given freedom. Press be given freedom. If now you are in Uganda, they'll be coming for you right now. They would actually be knocking on your door. I believe you're not in Uganda, but if you are in Uganda right now, by the time this show was done, there will be a drone parked outside your station, and you'll be picked up and taken. Brother, I commend you for the job you're doing. May God bless you.
Thank you.
So, what would happen? It would be leadership again. Because even if you're educating the masses and you're doing your job pretty well, and I'm really proud of you, And I'm really proud of the radio station that I'm getting to like and follow on a daily. So you publish. What else can we do? Publish immoral characters who have been proven guilty. Yeah, pick them out and publish them and put them out in the news. But if you put them out and they're not apprehended, who is supposed to apprehend them? The
The
leadership.
leaders, yeah, the government.
Recovering public funds. If I say Anita Among, if I say this person has taken iron sheets, if I say this person has taken money amounting to this amount of money, 1 billion, and I mention names and people, what is supposed to happen to them? They are supposed to be prosecuted, apprehended, arrested, prosecuted, and then their property must be sold and accounts frozen so that money is brought back into the coffers for the wananchi to operate the system and the economy. But do you have the moral authority to do it from here?
No.
One leader said, even if you ban me from going to the US, it is okay, I'm comfortable where I am. I am here, so I will eat here and sleep here and go back to my people in Bukedia. Really? Really, really? Is that where we are? So it goes back to the leadership. So the key points finally I can tell you about leadership is we need to change the government. Because in all honesty, the government has failed its people.
Okay.
Have you yes.
Give me a minute. Let me read this message. It's from Benzo. I think at this moment, Mr. Museveni does not want to do that. That's why he's devoted to corruption and abductions now. That still goes to leadership, right?
It still goes with it because you see now, if he stands out and points out at corruption in the particular sector, then he finds one of his handlemen who went with him to the bush is involved. I've been following the scandal in Dubai. Is it the one that one of the members brought and changed the whole
internal
a whole
affairs.
internal affairs into a casino? You know, who does that? In all honesty, you people. Sometimes I even feel sorry for my motherland. You even walk around and go to an office and stuff, and you say, "Ah, where do you come from, Uganda?" And like, "Oh, you're from Uganda." Like, who takes that impunity out of his country and creates a casino in another country? You know, sometimes we need to look at things with a level of patriotism for our own home country. So the key goes back to one thing. We need to change the leadership because the president cannot uphold his stature of presidency to arrest and apprehend these people because he's indebted to them. Pakatere Mbundu. They went to the bush with him. Hey. So now you expect him to say, hey, and now in some of the corrupt sectors, his own people, henchmen are in. You're talking about relatives. Okay?
Yeah.
So do you expect him to go and apprehend his relatives and tell them, hey, my son-in-law, my what? You're the one who took this money, so you come here. At the end of the day,
you talked about you talked about the leadership as a big thing. Very many people see the opposition right now, this most especially the NUP structure, as bad leaders. Do you think the opposition, just in case Mr. Museveni goes, the opposition has the will, the right leaders, to lead Uganda?
I believe in a national unity platform, and I know they have the structures. And who says that they don't have the experience? Because when Museveni came into power, was he an experienced leader? He came, he learned on the job, he made his mistakes, he became president, he has ruled. Why not allow another youth who knows our problems, like us? Why not allow us to take over our own country, make our mistakes, and build from there? Look around you and look at countries that have had presidents who change after particular terms and see the progress they have made. We have been said to be likened to countries that were greater than in the 1960s, but now they are 4 times better than us, the first world countries, and we are still a third world country. Do you know why?
No.
Because of having one regime coming again and again, fulfill their desires and do as they please. So the key factor in this whole line is we need to change the leadership. If we don't change the leadership, the regime that is on is bent, hell bent on only earning and making their pockets richer.
Okay. Mr. Napoleon, I think time is not on our side. It was we're supposed to have an hour show, but looks like people have joined the show. To everyone that is listening us using an iPhone, yeah, so far we've had some good numbers. Around 20 people are listening in from Kenya, Uganda, the US, and Canada. You know, I'm just really humbled for you guys. Thank you for joining the Xavier Radio show. The host is Tinta, and I'm glad that I'm having you listening to this show. We're both on TikTok and live on radio. You can go to www.xavierradio.com. I think after the show, I'll do a detailed article about today's show so that to anyone that
I
can
have a
read.
small I have a small announcement, sir.
Okay, no problem.
Mid-month we have the president Bobby Wine. He will be in Canada, Ottawa. He will also be in Toronto and Edmonton. So come in numbers, big numbers. We'll be studying about democracy and corruption. Let's find ways of changing the government and the regime in Uganda and bring our country to books so that we are able to go forward. People power, our power, for good in my
No,
country.
no. Before you go, I think you had not finalized your point about leadership in the National Unity Platform, and really
Yes, yes.
can NUP connect with other other factors like maybe Kiza Besije and Norbert Mao with the UPC people on how to govern Uganda,
But we are known for working together with
the
all
regime.
these parties. We are working with FDC. No. National Platform is known for working with FDC. We've worked with the DPC. We've worked with all the UPC. We've worked with all the DP. We've worked with all these parties. But you also need to understand something. You mentioned something earlier about that. Are we ready to work with other people in regards to bringing change to our country? We are fully aware of the challenges and we are willing to work with all these other parties to make sure we bring change. And then you said we have bad leaders. We do not have bad leaders, but you also need to understand that some people are wolves in sheep's clothing. So we have had situations whereby people who are also brought in by the regime to come and destabilize the national unity platform because of the strength. Because Mr. Museveni has never seen anything like this. Okay, he
Yeah.
has never seen what President Bobi Wine has brought. President Bobi Wine has brought he has brought fire on him, and
Mm.
because of the fire that is raining down on him, he has tried. He has broken down many parties. You know the history
Yeah,
of
yeah,
many
yeah.
parties coming up, and then they grow, and then he infiltrates them, and then breaks them down. But
Mm.
NUP has been very hard to crack because of the togetherness they have, because of the strength. These are not people who have come from well-being, whereby they will be fleeced by money and certain things. These are people who have fought their way through from being an MP to becoming going to parliament and then creating a party, starting as people power, giving the people the power, giving the people the power to resent people who are doing wrong to them, giving people the energy and the strength to speak against bad people and evil and wickedness. But all in all, we need to consider one of the things that actually drives the national unity platform is where it has come from. It begins as a way of the people power, where it gives back to the people and gives you everyone the audacity to speak. First and foremost, everyone can speak now. Everyone. Whether you're speaking sense or nonsense, but at least you're able to
To speak.
speak. Now it
Mm.
comes down to two things: speaking sense and speaking nonsense. It is true, there are people who are speaking nonsense, and there are those who are speaking sense. There are also people who are doing nonsense, and those people who are doing sense. We both know. There are characters who have come and shown themselves as people who are flamboyant to doing good things, and then when they get into the system, they start doing manyang, or they start creating people, they start creating avenues of being corrupt also
Mm.
in the intention of making themselves richer. Now, because of this, it causes more backfire on national unity platform. But these are also effects of any party. If you look at FDC, look at DP, they have gone through the same seizures. Look at what happened to Norbert Mao. I don't want to discuss him. Look at
Mm.
what happened to FDC and how it's divided into two parties when it was one party. All these are the tests of time. And national unity platform is also supposed to have its own test of time as it grows. Any child, as a child grows, it has to go through its tenure of crawling to standing to walking to becoming a youth and eventually growing into an adult. So
Okay.
we as humans
Mm.
and people of Uganda, let's embrace National Unity Platform and give them the platform to rule and reign because they have the desire and the strength, because they're the current generation, they're the youth
Okay.
who
Before you
cover the bigger percentage.
Okay, before you finalize, because I want you to remind people when is the news, no, the diaspora convention and everything. Let me read this advert here. The Art and Culture International Talent Exhibition is gonna be happening here in Toronto, and give me a minute. Give me a minute. The Art and
It's okay.
Culture International Talent Exhibition is happening in Toronto. It's gonna be at 237 Sackville Street, Toronto, and Sackville Street. Okay. There was a problem with the TikTok feed. I wanted people to to read through. We're gonna be at
Okay.
237 Sackville Street, Toronto, and it's gonna be an all VIP experience. So be there or be nowhere. You can call Mr. You can call this number for Alexander Luima +4 337 332 5563. I saw a NUP get together in to everyone that is in Toronto, right? To everyone that is in
Yes,
Toronto.
Toronto.
Yeah, Toronto. There's a NUP get together happening this Saturday. No, this Friday, tomorrow. It's happening this Friday. Okay. Like ngabwe nchinonya mbadde nsaba oyiseewo mentions ezo tulabe. When is the convention happening? Hello, Mr. Napoleon. Okay. Looks like Napoleon is off, but I'm glad I had him on Xavier Radio. To everyone that is listening to us right now, I've Omosao, Mr.
Can you hear
Museveni.
me?
Yes, I can hear you now. I was not.
Yes.
So you were talking about
August 16th.
it's
August 16th,
okay,
President Bobby Wine will be in Canada.
okay.
We shall be in Ottawa. We shall be in Edmonton. We shall be in Montreal. Yes, Montreal, and then Toronto. That's where the grand finale will be. So I'm calling upon Abantu Munda Abadi in Canada to prepare and organize and join us as we have that discussion, which will be democracy and corruption back home and how to make better leaders. Because even you are in the diaspora, yeah, you can become a leader back home. Ogendo tuyambeko abantu bayigirize okoleki ofuge obulungi tukutereze eggwanga lyaffe. So I'm gratefully calling about upon everyone. I'm also a person who fights against tribalism. Abantu mwena mwije turebe President Bobi Wine naza kuba ari mu ihanga Ottawa ebiro binagamba 10.
Okay. Is your net, Mr. Okay. Your network, I think you have an issue with
Yeah,
your network.
so
Okay. Yes, you were saying Abe
I'm
Hanga.
sorry 16 17 18 abantu mwije twakire President Bobi Wine abasosolese ekigambo kya demokrasia hamwe na obulungi bw'okukuuma ihanga lyaitu tiinemu obulya bw'enkuzi mwebale munonga.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I kindly ask that we all together come together for this.
Okay. Another reminder, Mr. Alexander told me to do that. Arts and Culture International Talent Exhibition, 237 Sackville Street, Toronto. Register with them, the African Descent Ontario, Toronto, Canada, at +1 437 332 5563. I don't know if there are any questions. In case you have any questions, you can put the questions on TikTok, and the number you can send your questions. I don't know, Mr. Napoleon, let's give people 1 or 3 minutes so that they can put in their comments all questions. You can send your
No
questions on
problem.
plus 437 860 8277. 837 860 8277. Just send a message. Tell me what you think. Then Napoleon is here. He will be replying all the messages as they come in. Musao Wobusolo Doctor says the use of penalties and punishment has historically been a primary mean of preventing corruption.
That is very true. Problem is, can the current regime carry out that? Because let me give you an example. We've had a number of people who have been condemned, indicted, and eventually it has been found out that it's true. They took the money, they ate the money, they did this. Has anything happened to them? People go to Rosita for 2 weeks for billions of money, and then the case dies along the way. As long as social media dies out and it's no longer over the news, they are released and they are let go. So, as I said, it comes back to the regime, the leadership.
Yeah.
We need governing that can implement, because it doesn't matter if you find out something and you don't. I have a story. I'm sorry to use this, but give it to me just 1 minute.
Okay.
There's a story I love in the Bible. It's about a man who had two sons. He walked over to his two sons. He told the first son, I have something that I want you to do for me. Can you help me do it? The first son said, yes, but he never went to do it. He walked over to his second son and asked the second son, can you help me do something? The second son said, no. But Ruvanymaneko Mchuan was like, okay, I said no, but he went and did it. So Jesus Christ asked his disciples, who of the two fulfilled what the Father had asked him? Was it the first son who said yes and never went? Or the second son who said yes and he went?
The second son.
The second son who said no and he went and did. Okay?
Yeah.
The first son said yes, but he never went. The second son said no, but he went and did. So let's not be talkers. Let's walk the talk. Otherwise, we're going to have this conversation, me and you, today, tomorrow, and forever, like you mentioned earlier. How long? There is no timeline to this, but the implications of how aggressive we can be, how serious we can be, how up to date we can hold the reins matters. It depends on us how and what we want. If we sit back and feel like, oh, we are comfortable, I'm in the diaspora, or then we are going nowhere. And we need to strive to make sure we take out this kind of mentality, cheap popularism of speaking and stopping. We gotta do something.
Okay. There is another question here. Are the NUP diaspora chapter leadership supposed to be elected, or they have to stay forever? By the way, that is a vital question.
They are supposed to be elected. Hello?
Yes.
They are elected because even here where we are, we have elections. Periodically, ours runs for 3 terms. My president, Mr. Chobe, in our last election, unanimously we agreed that he should be our president, our chairman, Nuporawa. So even in Toronto and all the other sectors, it's the same thing. It's the people who decide who vote for them. And one thing they also need to consider is because in the diaspora, to be a leader, especially in the greater community, you have to have the papers. Because don't expect someone who has come and doesn't have papers. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And then you are voted into being, let's say, a president or a chairman, and then all of a sudden, things don't work out. How can you lead people in your absence? You have to be present. So there are certain things here in the diaspora. It's different because there are particulars that they consider for you to be. At least you have to be a permanent resident to be at least part of the leadership. Because if we groom you and build you and breed you, and in a couple of years you're no more, then you're going away with a lot of history that should have helped us become a better organization.
Okay. Let me read this message. Mr. Museveni has all the best ideas to develop our country, but he has turned it to a wako system, very painful. Okay. Essentially, the risk of facing severe punishment is intended to deter individuals Who else? Guys, I'm reading your messages. You can send them both on TikTok. I use Tinta, and on WhatsApp, I read out the number. Kaisuku House says, when did the last election take place? Jesus Christ. In the diaspora, we should have leadership education as it is in diaspora. We should have leadership education as it is in Uganda. Do we even really have leadership education in Uganda? Apart from the Chankwazi, I don't know. I don't want to mention it. It's your question,
But
Napoleon.
there's a NUP school for leadership. I can forward you the details. I'm picking them
No.
up to send them.
Yeah, I know about it.
Yes, so very true. I believe, like I said, we mass education was one of my points. If you remember,
Yeah, true.
mass education on corruption in the masses, but also education on becoming better leader. Leadership education courses should be introduced, which are there, but abantu tebazivumbi. You know what I'm saying? They're not marketable. If you go and study if you go and study a leadership education course, are you employed anywhere?
No.
You're not employed anywhere. It's a personal what? So what people tend to do is they first become leaders, then they think I will go and study the education course, which they don't do eventually because they are already what? They're the leaders. But when you could have us who are here on the ground to go and study these courses, they're even online, by the way. I'm going to forward you a lot of information that you can keep putting up on our station so that people can find ways of getting this information and then be groomed on how to access this information to help them be better leaders.
Okay. Napoleon, your last words and a reminder that Bobby Wine will be in Canada, in Toronto, and
Edmonton,
Ottawa, yeah, Edmonton,
Montreal too, yeah. Yeah. President Bobby Wine.
By the way, a minute. By the way, hopefully you'll give me the adverts, so that they will be playing on our radio.
Please, I will release them to you. I can't fail to do that, sir. I'm very appreciative of the work you're doing.
Okay.
My name's once again Biargawa Napoleon. I am the spokesperson for NUP Ottawa, and I'm on the committee with President Chove, Vice Chairman Abi, who is I'm sure all of them are listening in, and other committee members, and the entire people of persons of Ottawa and Uganda. It was short notice for us to prepare for this show. I know they should have come in greater numbers because they have been asking me, why didn't you tell us? We would have taken off so much and everything. But I believe in future we shall organize in a better stature.
Yeah.
The last words would be the president will be around between 16th and 20th. We will visit Ottawa, Toronto, Edmonton, and Montreal. And during those times, we will be indulging in conversations concerning corruption and democracy and how to get a better Uganda. So I hope we can come in numbers and welcome him, but also we can come and learn and strategize and mix and greet, you know what I'm saying, so that we are able to find a way to improve our home country. Okay. And finally, I would like to thank the presenter, the host for this show, and for this Radio Observe Radio, which is I'm going to talk to my people.
Okay.
And I have a lot of people.
Okay.
I also told you I am a deacon in church and other places and other things I do. The communities I indulge in. And I'm going to inform them of this radio. We need to grow this radio. Okay. And we need to find a way to grow our home country, Uganda. Okay. Uganda is a very beautiful country with very good natural resources. But apparently it's hindered by the poor government leadership. That's
leadership, as you said.
Museveni and his regime. It's absurd that such a country could be going through such a turmoil. Okay. Most of our people are out there in the diaspora hustling. They're not home, especially the youth. Over 75 are living below the poverty line. And it's painful. It's really painful that 64% of the youth are the ones who are unemployed. You can hear the insecurities of your ownership because people don't have what to do and they're ending up in funny bits of business. So we are praying so hard that we can have a change in governance. And it's a call up to our people. Do not be tribalistic, whether you're Muganda, Munyankole, Muchiga, Mutoro, Mufumbira, whichever group you come from, please come through and help Uganda become a better place to stay, because without good governance, then we cannot have democracy. I
Okay.
salute you all, and may God bless you.
Okay, thank you so much, Napoleon Noob Ottawa. By the way, you can mute the microphone by way to get off. There is a business. There is a business listing, profitable, and it's a profitable convenience store located in downtown Niagara. Low monthly rent, beer and wine license, tobacco and lotto approved. Grocery and coffee is there. Monthly rent is 1,150 Canadian dollars. Please call Rumi on 647 510451. Call Rumi in case you want this convenience store. It's located at downtown Niagara Falls. 6475104510. He's my guy. Call him in case you want it. My other last mention goes to still the African descent, Mr. Alexander Luima. Thank you for making sure that. By the way, to you, Mr. Napoleon, Alexander Luima is one of the partners of Tinta Media and Xavier Radio. So, African Descent Ontario.
I believe I should meet that gentleman. There's a history, so I will not talk about it now. But please, I'll get connected to him. Thank you.
Okay. African Descent Ontario presents the Art and Culture International Talent Exhibition that is gonna be at 237 Sackville Street, Toronto. So it's gonna be an all VIP experience. Please register Canadian 100 for the Canadian delegates. International delegates is 375 Canadian dollars. +1 437 332 5563 and be part of the International Art and Culture International Talent Exhibition at Sackville, Toronto. Thank you so much, Mr. Napoleon. Glad to have you. Hopefully, I'll have more of, we need to have these tough discussions about our country. We need to have these tough discussions about ourselves, because if we don't talk about them, who else will talk about our country?
No one.
Yeah. Okay. To everyone that has been tuned in so far, according to the statistics I've shown you, I haven't shown you. According to the statistics, people that have been listening in are over 20 people. So I'm glad we're gonna be enlarging our audience to a wider Canada and Ugandan audience. Thank you so much. Let me give you one Bobby Wine here. Should I play Labisa, I play Nalumansi, or Kasukari? Which is better for you, Mr. Napoleon?
Lavisa.
Okay, let me play for you, Labisa. Till next time, Xavier Radio, we have, by the way, don't go anywhere. We have a lineup of music, Ugandan music, so that, in case you miss home, you can come back and listen to our radio. Thank you so much. Glad to have you, Mr. Napoleon, the NUP Ottawa chapter Piara. Hopefully, I'll have you next time. Thank you for the short notice. You didn't back down. You said I have to be on.
Thank you.
Till we meet again.
Thank you.